Are you looking to start implementing Zero Trust within your organization, but don't know where to start? We have you covered. In this episode of the Azure Essentials Show, we're going to show you how you can get started implementing Zero Trust. Welcome back to the Azure Essentials Show. I'm Thomas, and I'm here with Brandon, Principal Customer Engineering at Azure. And today we are going to chat about Zero Trust guidance for networking. In this episode, we will learn about Azure Landing Zones, Portal, BICEP, and Terraform accelerators, and how to create a foundation for security across Azure hybrid and multi-cloud environments. If you have not already watched the first episode on Zero Trust, I highly recommend you hit the pause button here and watch that one first. Check out the description below to find the link for episode 1 and all the other resources we're going to talk about today. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you have questions, leave a comment below and we will come back to you. Brandon, thanks for joining me today to showcase some of the ways organizations can get started with implementing Zero Trust.
Thanks for having me on, Thomas. I'm excited to talk about the Zero Trust practices and how to enable them in your networking pillar for your landing zone. The Azure Landing Zone reference implementations are programmatic deployments for your Azure Foundation that align to best practices out of the box. The first resource we're going to be looking at is a guide that will be showing you how to deploy the Azure Landing Zone Portal Accelerator with Zero Trust in mind. This lets customers deploy shared resources like networks, firewalls, Azure policies, jumpstart on the Zero Trust networking principles. We want customers to be able to take advantage of the tools for Zero Trust that are available. So giving guidance for what to deploy to match those practices is important.
Thanks, Brandon. So I also want to remind our viewers that we have multiple episodes about Azure Landing Zones and how to implement them already done. So make sure to check out the description below. We have the links there so you can check them out. So back to you, Brandon. We were talking about the guidance that is available.
Yeah, that's right. So we have guidance for using the portal deployment to deploy Zero Trust with Zero Trust in mind. Here, you'll find and learn what settings you need to apply in order to fall in line with those Zero Trust guidance items that we talked about last time. So, for example, when we're doing our platform management for security and governance, we'll be looking at deploying Defender for Cloud for DNS, as well as other security policies. When we get into deploying the network topology and connectivity, we'll want to deploy a hub and spoke network or an Azure Virtual WAN with the Azure Firewall Premium enabled. And as we're doing so, we want to make sure we're turning on threat protection and other tools like DDoS protection and the use of private DNS zones so that we're starting with all of those security controls in mind. As you're doing this, you'll be thinking about putting your spoke networks together in segmented small islands, each with their own ingress and egress controls to minimize that blast radius in the event of an attack. In the landing zone deployment, we're going to do that by enabling policies for security groups and other controls to make sure that our networking is following those practices. These policies will actually prevent deployments that go against Zero Trust principles, so that if you're creating a rule that is too broad or you're not even putting in the right kind of controls, the Azure policies will stop you and keep you from deploying in an insecure manner. Once you've got all of that, you'll have the tools in place to begin maturing your Zero Trust practices for networking pillar as you start deploying applications into Azure.
This is fantastic and makes it super easy to actually get started, right? So you don't miss any of these crucial settings and all these points. So this is a perfect way to get started in the Azure portal.
Yeah, the Azure Landing Zone deployments are a great tool for any organizations that are wanting to get started in Azure and do so securely and quickly. If you want a complete walkthrough of the Azure Landing Zone Portal Accelerator, we'll get some links in the description, and you can select one of the deployment guides in the wiki navigation on the right hand of this deploying enterprise scale repo. But that's not the only way to deploy the Azure Landing Zones. If you want to use infrastructure as code, we have repositories for BICEP and Terraform. These deployments deploy the same things. There's not a big difference in what gets deployed, but you can use these to build your own pipelines and deployment following best practices. When you're deploying out zero trust network principles, such as with this BICEP deployment, you'll be required to set certain module parameters to a value. These guides give you instructions for what parameters need to be set to give you the zero trust controls we're looking for. Some of these are already the default values, but some of them also will need to change. Each one of the modules in the BICEP reference implementation will have one of these parameters files, and so you'll make those changes there. The same is going to be true for Terraform. You'll again have different reference files that you'll want to set values to, such as enabling DDoS protection and other items, and making sure that you're deploying them with the right tools in place. This will also help you set up any policy controls to make sure you've got the right network practices. So they're going to prevent you from doing a lot of the easy configurations that come back and bite customers in the butt later when they're dealing with security flows. The same is true for Terraform. There's going to be different locations for the parameters, but you're going to be making the same types of settings. You can use the provided reference files to declare the above variables as local values. These configurations can be used to illustrate the settings needed to deploy the zero trust principles. This will set the policy controls to ensure good network practices are in place. They'll prevent you from creating public IPs in the identity subscription, deny the creation of subnets without NSGs, network security groups, and prevent inbound remote desktop access from the internet to VMs in that identity subscription. There's going to be a lot of controls here that you're going to be able to take for granted as you begin deploying out your workloads in Azure.
Yeah, this is awesome and makes it super easy actually to make sure that you're really deployed in a secure way. And you can learn more about customizing your connectivity deployment in the article we linked below in the description. Brandon, is there anything else you want to talk about Zero Trust today?
Sure. So while we've got these controls for the networking pillar, I want to call out a resource in the Cloud Adoption Framework that can be useful for looking for different pillars within your landing zone. In our security design area, we have this Incorporate Zero Trust Practices into Your Landing Zone article, and it provides an overview of how to create a foundation for security more broad than just the network pillar. It will talk about Azure, hybrid, and multi-cloud environments as well. And so the topics here will walk you through planning for zero trust across your different Azure deployments. We have a breakdown of which landing zone design areas influence which pillars, and we even have the links to the guidance on the zero trust site as well. This is going to let you look across all of those pillars that we talked about last time and see about how to plan for them as part of your Azure adoption. You can continue to take this and enhance what you have already. So even if you're already in Azure, this is a great guide for looking at places to improve and continue that zero trusted journey.
Fantastic. That's great, Brandon. Thanks for talking to us about enabling zero trust in landing zones and sharing resources how to continue improving security in your organizations.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Thomas. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. For our viewers, remember to check out the first episode where we gave an overview on zero trust. Until the next time, thanks for watching the Azure Essentials Show.